Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome back to the big show. Some of you people are, it's kind of weird. I'm not like a J.D. Vance weird, but like there's a guy, a listener, what was his name, John, who's like, hey, send me the sound clips from the media montages of the way the media treated Waltz different than Vance. Okay, I can send you these sound. What are you doing? You have your own show that you're competing with me? Are you about to go flip on another station over? You got your own little private studio going there? You got an audience? No, they want to pass it around, try and convert friends. Okay, well, that's noble ambition. My next guest, Debbie Schlussel, back on the James Show. Debbie, what's some of the weird things people ask you for? Because you're huge on social media. You get weird requests like that? Like, hey, can you send me some soundbite, or what's the link to something or other?
No, what's your shoe size? Send pictures of your feet. Stuff like that. And there's actually one person that used to be a faux conservative commentator, and is largely off of that now, who used to advertise her shoe size on her website and post pictures of her feet and her shoes sometimes. And I always wondered, what kind of weirdo is this that would advertise these kinds of things to people? Total strangers, but those are the weird things I get.
Well, yeah, but I would consider that an advantage. I have been doing broadcast radio for 22 years in some of the biggest markets. I was on satellite radio. Not one person has asked me for a picture of my feet. Not one. And, not to get off on a sidetrack here, but of all the foot fetish people, I think 0% of them are women. I think that's an exclusively weirdo dude thing.
I think you're right. Absolutely. Because, I've never heard of a female foot fetishist.
All good points here. Speaking of weird, Tim Walz is getting a lot of criticism over the last few days over his war claims. Now, there's a difference between exaggerating your service and outright lying about it, but does this win over or lose any voters, Debbie?
I think it should lose voters. Listen, years ago, there was this Muslim activist here in the Detroit area, big-time Democrat, got elected to all kinds of stuff, and for years, he would claim that he fought in Vietnam on the front lines, and I always was suspicious. So I FOIA'd Freedom of Information Act, did a FOIA request for his military record. And in fact, if he did any military service, it was guarding the gold because he had never left stateside. And he was stationed at that, what's the name of that fort that used to have all the gold? What was it called?
Knox.
Knox, yes. So he was stationed at Fort Knox. He had never left stateside. He never was in Vietnam. And to me, that's very, very important. And we all know that by now, or we should, that Walt lied and he tried to get out of things. And he was kind of cowardly. And CNN, which, of course, no surprise, but they had this anchor who was interviewing one of Walt's superior commanding officers. And she thought he was going to say, oh, it's not a big deal. He didn't do anything wrong, blah, blah, blah. But the commanding officer actually said the exact opposite. So she interrupted him the whole time, couldn't wait to get out of the interview, and just basically cut him off in the middle. I tweeted this video.
Oh, I didn't see yesterday. That.
Yeah.
Do I need to go back and watch it? Is it worth watching?
I think so, because this woman is, now in my opinion, she's the most annoying, horrible person on TV news. And there's very stiff competition just at CNN alone, let alone all the mainstream media. Just the way this woman was so disrespectful to this guy, it annoyed me a lot.
Well, what do you think of the adoption of the line "no tax on tips"? Is that something Waltz can even claim that he would be in favor of? He seems to be a very pro-taxi kind of guy.
Yeah, he's very big on taxes. And this whole thing about no tax on tips, I think, is maybe Kamala thinks that she is not going to get a lot of the working class, because right now, a lot of the white working class is for Trump. A lot of it. It's the educated people with PhDs on how to make cashmere out of Q-tips and wrote a thesis about that. Those people are for Kamala. But a lot of the working class people, even though their unions are for the Democrats, are voting for Trump. A lot of them. And so I think that that's what this no tax on tips is about. And I think it shows kind of a desperate situation for them. It's a lot of desperation because she already, right off the bat, was endorsed by the union that represents a lot of these servers, these restaurant workers in Vegas when she had that giant crowd there that she's been bragging about. And if she's so sure about those crowds and about those endorsements, why would she even bring this idea up? I think it's a sign of desperation.
Well, they seem to be doing okay in the polls, though, Debbie. You think it sounds desperate. A lot of people like what they hear. They've turned a couple of states from leaning red to toss-up. Now, if you take all the toss-ups out, Team Red is still winning, but the margin has narrowed.
Right. So she is winning in some of these polls. But I think there are internal polls that show something else. And I think the internal polls show maybe not that she's losing, but that she's losing among the white working class. And that's who makes up, I would say, the majority of the wait staff in America. Yes, there are black servers. Yes, there are a lot of lefties that are servers. But I think the majority of these people in middle America who are servers, waiters and waitresses, I don't know if I'm allowed to use those words anymore because they're not
so offensive, right?
Woke, but I think a lot of those people are voting for Trump, a lot of them. And I think this is, otherwise, why propose this? They must have some kind of polling that shows something different.
Just to win votes. That's it, win votes.
Yeah, I think everything is going to be very, very close. I think the old rules don't really apply to this election at all. I really thought Joe Biden would have quit within the first week after that debate where he did so terribly.
Right.
He didn't. He held out. A lot of these things, I think it's going to swing back and forth a lot, and I think it's going to be very, very close when it comes to election day. It's going to be very tight.
Debbie Schlussel, always fun talking to you. Where do they find you outside of the James Show?
On Twitter, at Debbie Schlussel. Google it if you can't spell my name. At Real Debbie Schlussel on Instagram, and Debbie S. fan page on Facebook.
Debbie Schlussel, thanks again. Oh, wrong button. Debbie Schlussel, thanks again for being on the James. That was an accident. I wasn't buzzing you.
I know.
You didn't say anything incorrect. That was all on the up and up. Alex Trebek would be proud of your performance. Coming up next, why does Dallas continue throwing your money down the toilet? Studying plans for high-speed rail downtown. $1.8 million to study it. Okay, you can give me $5. I'll save you some money. Give me $5. I'll study it. Okay, I studied it. It's a waste. Don't do it. All right, problem solved. Next problem. That's coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Stories like this, they make me so mad. And I know they don't make you as mad, but if you listen to the show for a couple of years, perhaps you'll start to understand why I hate DART with the hot, hot heat of 1,000 suns. Because what we have right now is a handful of municipalities around here, 13 of which have to pay into the DART system. And they're doing the studies. They're looking at the promises. They're looking at what they were told. They're looking at the statistics. They're looking at the costs. They're looking at the ridership. They're looking at the economic impact. And they're realizing all of the promises that were made when we decided to take money from our citizens and give it to this entity, none of them are coming true. And since we're not getting our return on investment, we would like some of our investment back. So the rubber hasn't met the road yet. The cuts haven't actually happened, but we've had Plano and a handful of other entities that are in DART say that they want to stop sending the full 1 cent of the sales tax that they collect to DART. Maybe just like 3/4 of it, maybe just like a half cent. So DART is pushing back. DART has, look, this follows along with all of these other sort of based in climate change ideas. There's no end to them. Here, we just want to have a line that goes from here to here, and we'll see how that works. All right, well, we did a line from here to here, and it doesn't work. It's horrible. It doesn't get the ridership that you claimed. It loses more money than you claimed. It doesn't bring in the revenue you claimed. It wasn't as easy to get the eminent domains. It was more expensive to build. All of your claims came false. All right, so you're saying we should expand it? No, I'm not saying we should. See, how does that happen? How does this entity just fail over and over? Because it's in government. Only in government can you just fail that bad over and over. Any other private sector entity would have gone out of business. If this had been a private sector train line, it would have gone out of business. that doesn't go out of business, not because it's a good idea or because it's wanted or because they're not lying to you. It's because they get to pick your pockets constantly and you're not going to do anything about it. And as long as you don't, they're going to keep picking it. $1.8 billion is just vacuumed out of this economy in DFW every year and wasted on DART. And when they do the news reports or the write-ups in the Observer or the Dallas Morning News or TV stations or any of these other, none of them are convincing to me at all. They like to take one person and highlight the struggles of how hard their life is and how they rely on DART. How am I supposed to get from Richardson to Plano every day? For what? For a job that pays you so little you can't even afford a car? I'm not saying you're a loser. I'm saying I don't think you're reaching your full potential, sir. I think unless your IQ is like that, it's a 74 or something, you can be taught, you can be trained to get a job that's more productive than that minimum wage thing you're taking the bus for. And I've been there. I've had to ride DART for months at a time. It's a horrible lifestyle that you shouldn't wish upon anybody. Think about going to the grocery store. Think about going to pick up, like, even if you buy new clothes. What happens if you're going home and it starts to rain? There you go. What happens to your groceries if it starts to rain? You know how awful that is? You know how awful it is to carry around your groceries on a train or on a bus? You know how awful that is when it's raining or it's 105 or it's 25? And this is all for what? We're spending $1.8 billion so a couple 100,000 people can get a free ride to a job that pays them so little they can't afford a car. I would love to be in the position right now to say I was wrong. I was wrong. They said it would cost X amount of dollars to build, and it came in way under budget, and it came in way ahead of schedule, and the ridership's more than anyone ever expected, and the revenues they're bringing in far exceed expectations. I wish I was telling you this, but that's fantasy land. And another reason why it's fantasy to spend $1.8 million to study a new route for the downtown high-speed rail that's never going to get built anyway is because none of these trains make money. None of them live up to their promises, whether it's in California, whether it's in the Northeast, whether it's here. There's only one train line like this, high-speed rail, passenger train line, that's owned by a government that makes money. It goes from Osaka to Tokyo, Japan. And it's that one you've seen, maybe you've seen the YouTube videos where they have the people whose job is to shove the passengers in there like sardines. Have you seen those? Have you seen the Japanese bullet trains whenever they're at the train station, get all these people on? I mean, you got to be packed in there so nasty and so tight that people are pushing you so the doors can close. They're just pushing you in. You're like stuffing popping out of a ripped teddy bear. The humanity like that. That's the only profitable one on planet Earth. Is that what you want to be riding on? The people that are going to be studying this. How many of them rode a bicycle to work or ride a train to work? How many of them want to be walking in the rain to go get their groceries 6 blocks away because that's the closest public transport can take them? It's terrible. This is a waste of money. $1.8 million to study it. To study it. Who's getting this money? Is there anything they can do with this money where we can say, well, that was a waste of money? Dude, you realize, like, if you got this contract, you could just go to Jamaica, or you could take a cruise, or you could buy a DeLorean. You could just waste it all on a house. You could just go spend it on whatever you want and then come back and type up a report and give it to them. This is money that just got thrown away to someone's crony. See, they're telling you it's progress. They're telling you they're saving the planet. But what they're really doing is robbing you and giving that money to their friends that are going to turn around and donate to them when they run for city council again. Or maybe they'll run for mayor. Or maybe they'll run for state senator, state legislature, or whatever the next little step up is. And then they'll get them some contracts. And, oh, we have some contracts for this new theater redevelopment. So now I've got these contractors that are going to be donating to me. And if I can get some more spending for this other park, oh yeah, we're going to renovate this park. Well, I'll get this landscaping conglomerate to do it. And they'll be my donors for my next campaign too. They are just buying favors. They are paying off cronies. They're stealing from you to do it. Stop it. These trains are terrible. DART's a waste of money. It's a waste in every major city where it's been tried. And I'm tired of pretending like it's not. And I'm tired of not seeing more critical reporting on this. You would think Dallas Morning News or all you TV stations or other radio stations out there, you found out that Dallas is fleecing their own citizens for $1.8 billion a year for no return. That's not a scandal to you? Oh, that's something to be praised? That's something you want to expand? Genius. You guys are real geniuses. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. This is The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I need you to be a nerd for a second. I know it's not cool and fun. We're not going to talk about couches or horses, or this is going to be economics. I think you can handle this. This isn't the dumb audience. This is the WBAP audience. This is the audience that advertisers pay the big bucks for, because you can handle complex, dry topics like this. I call it dry. You're about to hear me get real upset, though. It's this report on inflation. Like, inflation is something that we should probably spend more time talking about because it's the one that affects us the most. The reason why your lunch today was $14 instead of $9 like it was 5 years ago is because we haven't balanced the budget. We've had to print the money to make up the difference. And so we've increased the money supply. And so unless you're going to crush demand, you have more dollars chasing the same amount of products, and prices necessarily go up. It's an immutable law. It's like one of Newton's laws of thermodynamics. You can pretend it doesn't exist. You can pretend to not set your life around it, but you're going to be forced to deal with reality at some point. So I saw this on a local outfit, and I knew that no one that worked at a local station could be this dumb. And I was right. This comes from the AP, the Associated Press, their economics writer. Oh, well, he definitely can be. Whoever that is. The Associated Press Economics Department has about as much credibility as Cleo. Call me now for your free reading. That lady, remember her with the stupid do-rag? And I think she died. But they're blaming you, basically. Americans' refusal to keep paying higher prices may be dealing a final blow to U.S. inflation spike. That's the headline. That's not how it works. And look, how many times does this come up? And I say, if you're reading an article on inflation and they don't even mention the deficit or the printing of money or the expansion of money supply, because I know that's just a metaphor, it's not like literally printed, then it's a hack discussion that's not worthy of your time. It's toilet paper. It needs to be crumpled up and thrown away. Well, of course they don't bring that up in here. The subheadline, though, is prices are still high, and economists say Americans just aren't accepting them anymore. Well, that doesn't really end inflation. It starts off saying the great inflation spike of the past 3 years is nearly spent, and economists credit American consumers for helping slay it. No, the inflation is just going to be cemented in. It was never beaten. It is now here and is the undisputed king. It's the champ. The prices are never going to go back down. Oh, you might see prices fall for a few things here, like a flash drive or a flat screen TV. But overall, the spending power of your dollar that you've lost in the last 4 years, forget it. It's not coming back. You're never going to go back to paying under $10 for lunch again. That's not a thing. And when they say the great inflation spike is nearly spent, okay, so it's not at 9%, but it's still at 3%, which is killing us, which is 50% higher than your stated goal, which I think is ridiculously high to begin with. The goal should be 0. You shouldn't be happy with 3. Let me ask you a different question. How would you like a 3% rate pay cut this year compared to last year? How would you like a 3% pay cut next year? How would you like for the next 4 years? You're going to get 3% pay cuts and a 9% pay cut. How would you like that? Would that make your life better? If we stopped giving you pay cuts, did we improve your life any? No. They've driven all of our standard of living down about 20%. And they're just holding it there. It's getting worse, but it's getting worse slower. That's not a success story. And it's not your fault. Here's their pseudo economics. I quote from the AP story. Some of America's largest company, from Amazon to Disney to Yum Brands, say their customers are increasingly seeking cheaper alternative products and services, searching for bargains, or just avoiding items they deem too expensive. Consumers aren't cutting back enough to cause an economic downturn. Rather, they appear to be returning to pre-pandemic norms, when most companies felt they couldn't raise prices very much without losing business. That's it? That's your explanation? That's terrible. That is just absolutely terrible. So let me get this straight. You put a whole bunch of people out of work. You add a few $1 trillion, like 35% of our money supply has been manufactured, has been printed, metaphorically speaking, in the last 5 years. And we're on an almost $2 trillion a year deficit clip, which means not only is this not going to go away, it's going to continue. It's going to continue to still burn through the spending power. And so now that we don't have as many people that are buying goods because they can't afford them, because they don't have the job, because that money's now going to rent or electricity or food. Well, the demand is necessarily going down. And of course, supply and demand. What happens when demand goes down but supply remains the same? prices come down. But remember, we're in an inflationary period, so prices aren't going to come down. They're just going to rise a little bit slower. And it's not because your dollar is retaining its spending power at a better rate than it was last year. It's that enough people have been crushed. The demand got crushed with it. No, your dollar is still going to be inflated. Inflation has not stopped. It has barely slowed down. It's still higher than it's supposed to be. And it's not your fault. And if no one is going to try and balance the budget, if no one is going to try and stop printing $2 trillion a year, it's not going to stop. They told you it was transitory 3 years ago. Were they wrong then? What makes you think they're right about this? Of course they're not. We're still 3.3% was the inflation rate for June, 3.2% for July. This is what the last two numbers we know. That's what you're dealing with. You're getting a 3.3, maybe 3.2% pay cut every year if this keeps up. Does that make your life better? Does that make your life worse? What about the lowest among us? What about the poor people when you're so concerned about if they need a choo-choo train ride, or if they need a cooling center, or if they need some new swing sets at the park, or they need some program, or they need a food stamp? You're so concerned about the poor, except for stuff like this? All right, that's going to be my little rant for inflation. But this is something I'm disappointed in both you, Team Red and Team Blue, for this, because neither one of y'all take this serious, and you're killing each other, and you're killing me for it too. I wish y'all would really get a hold in this. And dude, if you ever see an article about inflation and they don't mention the Federal Reserve, they don't mention the printing of money, they don't mention the federal deficit, they're lying to you. They're dishonest. Or they're so dumb they have no idea. They have no idea what they're talking about, and you should dismiss them anyway. But that's why I gripe about balancing the budget on almost every show. Because that's what's killing you the most. That's what's killing everyone listening the most. And it's not even one of the top topics in today's presidential election. That's a shame. We're going to have to grow up one day, or this is really going to crash, and we're going to have to grow up the hard way. Thank you very much for hanging out on the James Show today. Stick around. Coming up next is Mark Levin. Christopher Cross is coming to the Majestic Theater on August 18th. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com, or you can text RIDE to 800-288-9227 for your chance to win a pair of tickets to see Christopher Cross at the Majestic Theater August 18th. That's RIDE to 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.